Okay.
And then they're just elected and they'd earn rewards, but they're not block producers, so they're not impacting consensus, and you don't have that concern anymore.
Yeah, being a
But
BP is not all it's cracked up to be. There's a lot of
yeah,
stuff that goes
I,
on
I
behind the
just
scenes.
clicked record, by the way, fellas, just so everyone's
cool.
clear. I wasn't recording. I mean, I can cut that out if that's something we don't want to say too loud. But regardless, I wasn't recording just because I don't have the function, but I started, just so everyone knows.
Awesome. It's weird that it didn't pop up and
Because
say that you're recording.
it wasn't through Zoom
All right.
because I don't have I'm
Uh,
not the host. Dom is, so this will be a
got it.
short call unless he joins. Um, so I did it on OBS, just realizing this is probably good stuff to talk about, or at least spread so other people can listen to.
Right.
Yeah. So okay, so I kind of lost track of what you're saying there a bit about. So if Eden became a BP but was rate limited to not being in the top 21, that was something that was tried. Like, isn't, and you said you tried that 2 years ago or suggested it, but it sounds.
That feature doesn't exist right now. That's not possible. Like if it
Oh,
were to be voted on, it would be in the top 21. Like there's no other tier of producer right now. All producers are the same. All producers can be in the top 21. There's no limits.
you can't decline a vote as a BP.
No,
What? You should be able to
no,
say you don't want to vote from somebody.
no.
You can unregister.
Yeah, but then you lose all your votes, right?
Yep.
Ah,
Well, you don't lose the votes. You just are no longer a BP, and that vote is kind of voided
Wasted.
out. And yeah,
that's annoying.
yeah. I mean, there's probably some fun system upgrades that could happen based on discussions like this, but it's going to take some real planning and development work and
Yeah.
all that fun stuff.
Yeah, EOS has done
I mean,
so
we
well with
already,
gradually
I mean, we
kicking
were
things
going
up.
to have a worker proposal system, which is basically what you're describing. Yeah, like Aaron
Yeah.
was saying years ago. Like this was all we've already known this was a problem and already had solutions that we wanted to put forward, and they were shot down for various reasons.
I just I don't think we've ever had a system to like collectively come to a conclusion about these ideas though. So that I mean this presents a new opportunity through Eden to potentially get some of this stuff actually like done.
Yeah, exactly.
Telegram's a great forum for recycling ideas that have been around for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Wait 2 weeks and recycle.
I'm playing ignorant because I actually don't know about a lot of this stuff. So maybe I'm just had I read things 3 years ago more diligently. Yeah. So when things get
can't
shot
blame you.
down, when you use the term things get shot down or it was shot down, this worker. So that is what that means. Block one, and then say Dan at the time.
No.
Is that, or what? What did that? Like, how come? How did it get shot down?
I I wouldn't say shot down so much as not adopted by the active BPs or developed to a point where the active BPs would accept the system change.
Uh,
Well,
So
I mean, EOS Nation wrote the contract, had it audited by two parties. There was an MSIG that was approved by over 15 block producers to enable it, but it was never executed. And the reason is because Brendan Bloomer said it was he had a better idea.
awesome. I mean, and that idea was just to wait for soon.
Yeah, the idea was to wait for Pamela, I think. Someone else probably knows more than I do about
So
it.
you're talking about the worker proposal system then, not this rate limiting of BP and vote control.
Yeah, but it's the same thing. It's the same concept of like vote for how funds should be allocated.
Oh yeah. In terms of Eden, I'm just thinking about why the Eden BP. We started off talking about why the conflict of interest. If Aaron or Matthew were to win, were to become Satoshi, and then Eden had a BP, that were they in charge of that and their BPs that they currently run. So there's this, and then they were both in the top 21.
Yeah, that's definitely it. Yeah, that's definitely an issue.
So then I was saying, well, couldn't you like rate limit the Eden BP to never allow it to make it into the top 21? So it's just strictly a revenue generating thing. And then if Kevin's going to say, yeah, let's B1 can vote for it, then that's just free money. But it's right. We don't want to ever have that the future potential problem. So I was saying, can you rate limit it? But I guess not yet. You can't selectively choose votes. I thought it was a volunteer system. You should be able to say, I don't want those votes from North Korea.
I mean, yeah, it's just like you're trying to kind of hack in a solution. You're trying to take one thing and use it to solve another problem. Like they're kind of unrelated. Yeah. Because the purpose of a BP is to secure the chain, not to fund development of the chain.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the purpose, like the game has been so twisted that now I think the original purpose is we're so far from what that was. This is like, how else can we like at least game it to be in our favor? That's all I'm looking at it like.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
But the question is does the act of gaming it create other problems that, undermines Eden? That's where we get into these philosophical debates.
Yeah.
Well, the general idea is that if you don't pay voter rewards, you're not going to get a lot of votes. So if the Eden BP is not paying out voter rewards, it's unlikely that it would get voted into the top 21, especially if it's mostly voted by people that know what they're doing and that don't want it to be in the top 21.
Yeah,
that is true.
Yeah, I think so. And you'd have plenty of warning before it got there, right? Like if we saw it, unless it was like some weird attack to force the Eden BP into the top 21, because that would like somehow hurt it. For a short period of time. Yeah.
So, you could just make a script that would unregister if it was in the top 21 and you didn't want it to be. But I would say, I mean, like, I would be okay with it making blocks. It's just, yeah, you would want to have a dedicated team running it, not sharing keys or sharing servers or sharing any infrastructure with another existing BP.
And so that's where I was asking, is it an ops problem? Because if it's just an ops, then yeah, whoever's operating the Eden BP isn't a current BP. We just have to pick someone else, and then it just becomes, does it make enough money to pay for the ops? And if the answer is yes, then we try it. But then the philosophical bits are what we're also discussing. Pragmatically, I don't think it's much of a problem. It's just, is it going to rub people the wrong way?
Even pragmatically, it might be some odd level of complexity, because the people, like the person who's ultimately in control is the ops team. The ops team, like for any BP, is the one that ultimately is the one who can execute and do things as the BP. So if we're talking about like having kind of a decentralized layer on top of that based on the election process in Eden, and then some like contracted ops team, there's nothing to stop that ops team from like going rogue. Besides, having the owner key and then resetting it, hiring a new ops team. I don't know if this is necessarily a concern, but it's an interesting train of thought.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't the owner key...
maybe a good way to frame this is that an existing BP, I don't think would outsource their ops, which is what the Eden BP would be doing.
Oh. Yeah, but it's the idea of Eden, like Eden can't be a person. Like, so
right?
It has to be this just body that has different humans fill roles from time to time, but it in and of itself, it's like the idea of having core funding, where like if we were a charity, if Eden was a charity, it would just have core funding from whatever, and it would pay certain bills, ops costs, just to like cover that basic core funding piece. But so that's why, again, I think of it just, if you could run a BP and strictly it be an ops problem with, you have an MSIG that's tied to whoever the board is at a time, and it transitions to the new board at every time. And as long as you can pay the ops team more than it costs, or less than it costs to generate revenue, I don't see how it's a problem. Unless it costs more to run.
You want to be in the top 21 anyway, so you don't need an ops team.
Say that again, sorry?
if you don't want to be in the top 21, then you don't need an ops team because you're never going to produce blocks. So don't set up any infrastructure.
I think for block one's vote, you need something.
But how did they know?
I assume they check. We want to do it by their rules. The bare minimum. That is not that bad, I guess. I don't know. Is the bare minimum a lot?
The bare minimum is nothing, right? You can get voted in to the 22nd position and nobody would know that you have no infrastructure.
How does block one not vet when they vote for people to confirm they have
There's
infrastructure?
no way to vet. You have no idea.
How can you not? There's no like pings
Well,
or something that go back and forth to verify. Like there's no. It's just I don't understand this enough. That's
Either you're producing blocks or you're not producing blocks. That's how it works.
But to be hidden, we don't need necessarily to be a BP. To be hidden, we can have the different people that are in the hidden that are their own agent, like an HDSP, for example, on DAP network. In the DAP network, you have HDSPs. You can be your own agent. So if each member of the hidden, not each, some member of hidden will be a core agent nodes, we don't need necessarily to have a BP, to run a BP ourselves. I was thinking about that today. And also to have the ownership of hidden. Who has the ownership of hidden? Now it's official. You can go in Wyoming, but you have to make careful with the IRS. I'm not sure how it's working in US, but you can be your own LLC and you can create your DAO, your DAC there. And after that, how the members are contributing into Eden. If you have some members that are agent and running the workforce for the dev, that should not necessitate absolutely to be to run a BP.
Yeah, but the point of the BP is to make money. That's the only reason. The only reason why I see us trying to do a BP is because Block One, Kevin said they would vote for us. So if Eden can make a BP, Eden makes money.
You see the last message of Kevin Rose in Eden OS Telegram?
I'm way behind.
I am not in Eden OS Telegram. I just read and I never write there because I can't. So I was reading and it was stating, basically he was stating, if someone in Eden want to run to be a BP, he would see that with a good eye, but he guarantee nothing. He say, I don't guarantee. So how you can going with something if at the end the people say, I don't guarantee you nothing? That's a waste of time.
Well, you could try. It would certainly shine. I mean, if Block One is looking to burn every bridge of goodwill they have left, sure, they can do that because he was very complimentary towards the idea before.
Yeah,
so,
but the first question is why? Why
to make
we
money.
Need the reason, la raison d'être.
Money.
Why we need a BP? Why we need that exactly?
Money.
Why we want to
self-funding?
What we want to achieve? Yeah.
Because we need funding. Eden's I mean, it's a great community, but the point is to distribute funds in a way that community sees fit. So those funds are yet to be. We haven't figured out where the money's coming from yet. And so if we can make money by having a BP,
of Block One.
Huh?
We will be dependent. If we do that, we will be dependent of Block.1.
For now, sure, but we have nothing. Like it's like right now our funding is zero. So yes, maybe we'll be dependent on Block One, but not forever. Certainly, we'd look for other methods too. And if we want the BPs in general to want to give us inflation, we need to demonstrate an ability to be a reasonable business that's going to get back to yields. So I don't know, and that's why I'm just trying to understand if the issues with the
and for
BP.
July 17, we have the funds. The 2,500 price. It's something that you can insure.
Well, Dan's offering it, right? He's paying. It's his funds.
It's done.
Yeah.
Okay, it's done. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, as much as I'm sure we'd all just want Dan to pay for it all, more money, like okay, but that's not reasonable. So we have to we got to find a way to self-fund. So
And the proxy ID, what could be the benefit to have a proxy for Eden?
I see two benefits. One is you can pick BPs, so that alone is worth some power, and aggregate the community voice to see if we have enough. Like, I'm curious how big our community is. Like, how many tokens do we even represent? This Eden group, those who are participating in Eden. Like, are we 100,000 tokens? 1,000,000 tokens? Yeah. I mean, I have no clue, zero clue. So I think that'd be interesting just to see. Help pick BPs, which would be, the more, if we can convince people and engage the community to pull their tokens off of an exchange, because there's a reason to do it now. And I mean, okay, well then do it, and then we can see how much we can aggregate in Eden, help pick BPs with those, remove power from the exchanges who are voting with those tokens. And then if we want to do the reward BP thing, which is another whole philosophical question, do we even want to participate? If we do participate, then we'll get some revenue there. And I've seen mixed APY. Matthew, I think I saw Steph put up 1.85 is the reward that you pay. So assuming you did something similar, and you're whoever proxies with the Eden proxy forgoes that reward, then that turns into a small amount of funding, depending how many tokens. So that's why.
But the good point is that in Q4, early Q4 or maybe late Q4, Pomelo.io will be funded by the matching funds, will be funded by Block.one. So at this moment, that will give back some funds into Eden. At this point,
Pomelo will.
Pomelo.io, Pomelo. This is funded by Block.one. I think when I say funded, I think the development, and EOS Asia also, EOS Nation and EOS Asia.
Yeah.
But when that will be productive in Q4, something like that, at this moment, the money flows in the Pomelo, in Pomelo matching funds, quadratic matching fundings.
Yeah.
And that could be some relationship. I was speaking of that with Daniel Keys on the last workshop. He said that he see some synergies between Pomelo, the matching funds of Pomelo, and the Eden pots. Or the inverse is also true. Eden through Pomelo is also true. So if Pomelo could give some money into Eden,
I don't know why that would make any sense.
Like your starter, you want to give back some money in Eden. This is stated in your image.
But for different reasons, not just money for the sake of money. EOS Starter would launch tokens that would have come through Eden funding, and then we would give some of those tokens back to Eden to then generate staking rewards from. That was that's the rough idea. But Pomelo would be using matching funds from a giver, and first it's going to be block one, and then it's going to quadratically multiply the individuals like us who need to then give to Pomelo as well, to give funds to a project that we're going to look at and have vetted, and they've done KYC and all of that type of stuff with Nation. And Matthew, I mean, I'm sure you can't talk to it yet, but I assume that's kind of what it's going to be like. And then they'd get funds to spend. About how that gives back to Eden, unless you're just going to give money to Eden to use for a future election.
If you have a project in Eden that could be interesting also for Pomelo, it's clear that Pomelo could help you.
Sure, but a project in Eden, that doesn't mean anything. I mean, people are in Eden, and people have the projects. Eden is just a way to have people come to consensus to allocate the funds that Eden's allowed to allocate. But if there's no money in the Eden pie, there's nothing to allocate. There's nothing to even, like, we could come to consensus all day long, and we can hold a flag when we're done and say we won. But if there's no money at the end, there's no point in even doing it. Kinda. Like, that's the purpose, right?
The plan itself.
Maybe a stupid question.
What's that, Aaron?
A stupid question on my side.
No, it's not a stupid question. It's just a misunderstanding.
I am thinking now. We are donate 10 euros to go as a member to be a membership. We have to give 10 euros, and we can have our NFT minted. So this 10 euros, that goes in the funds of Eden.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I don't know where it sits yet. It's probably aggregating.
You believe so?
Pardon me?
You believe so?
Yeah, I believe. That is what I believe. That's right.
This is what you believe. Okay, so
Correct. I mean,
I am
every
not
decision I
sure.
make is basically off of a belief, right? I mean, that's the fundamental
Yeah, there are a
basis
lot
of the
of
decision
belief.
making.
Yeah, I am not sure where goes this 10 years currently. That's the question.
I mean, it's on the
Yeah, I
blockchain.
agree.
You could probably chase it down. I'm assuming it's aggregating in some
No,
sort of
it's very
fund.
important because when someone want to apply, I was today with someone that was interested to go in Eden,
Yeah.
and he asked me what are the benefits to go. And when I was going to the point that he has to donate 10 years, and he asked me where goes this 10 years, and I was a little bit. I have to say the truth. I was telling him I am not sure exactly.
That same. I'm not positive. Yeah, go ahead. Someone might know the answer.
Yeah, it goes into the Eden Treasury. It will go into a community fund.
Okay.
And what Brandon Francher was kind of explaining the other day, 5% of that pool will be distributed out evenly monthly. That's pretty much, yeah, that's pretty much a community chest. And then as we start voting, we can kind of decide as a community what that best allocation of those funds are. But yeah, it is definitely into a treasury, multi-sig treasury.
Okay.
Yeah.
So currently, this is our only source of funding. We can say.
No, actually, the two main sources of funding, yes, is that membership fee. But I think another big source of funding that a lot of people may be overlooking is the auction of the new memberships, the NFTs. That is a huge source of, that's a huge source of capital that's being left on the table. If we could sort of better market these NFT drops for these membership NFTs, that could be a huge source of income that I think is being left on the table.
It's probably being collected too. I mean, I think Todd. That's why I don't know the exact account for our current membership dues and the NFTs.
It's the one you pay to.
They should
when
all
you sign your transaction.
I didn't look. Is it the same one as the membership donation account? Might be a different account. It is the same
On
account.
this account? Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So it's all going into one account then.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
So it went into the membership dues went to Eden.gm, I believe, the account first, and then it was switched. It was the initial funds were refunded, and now it's into, I believe it's just Eden, if I'm not mistaken. But when you sign the transaction to send the membership dues, it goes right into that. Even on the atomic asset market, that collection, that is where the funds are going to when people purchase the NFTs. So you can track all the funds.
Exactly. Yeah, I was supposed that, but I was not sure. Okay, so that's confirmed. Yeah. Always good to know exactly the things.
Yeah. Makes sense.
But the DP question and the proxy question, maybe the proxy is more immediate. I would say is more light to set up than to set up. It's obvious to set up a BP because you need a good infrastructure. You need to be very good. I would say to have like EOS Nation some different place for your servers. So it's a big thing. Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Came back from a vacation today and seen 100 something extra. Man, I was like, whoa, let me get caught up here. So yeah, it looks like Kevin Rose is back in there, sort of boosting the idea or conversation about the BP again today a little bit. I've seen vaguely.
Yeah, he was briefly touching that. Yeah, and he was doing the advocate of the evil to see if he was challenging a little bit the conversation, but yeah. That's good to see that he is in the discussion, but as always, there is no guarantee. So that's the. And he was writing that.
That's maybe a waste of Eden.
At least he said the truth.
Eden time. Yeah. Do we think that's a waste of Eden time right now or our community resources and time right now to try to sort of stand up at BP and be worried about all that right this moment just for some carrot to dangle in front of our face? Do we really want to do that?
I'm down with making money for Eden, right? Eden needs to generate funds. So if it can turn a profit, then I think we should do it. But if it's
Yeah.
not, then we shouldn't.
From what I've heard from the experts here, that are running block VPs, that doesn't seem like it's going to be a very profitable enterprise. So I don't know that we need to just even continue to waste our time with it. I'm not sure. I don't know a whole lot about running a VP. I'm just going from what our experts in the community are sort of suggesting, that maybe it's not sort of worth our time at this moment. We're still in incubation phase. We haven't even really birthed the child of Eden yet, and we're asking it to sort of go out and buy its own formula and make its own milk.
Yes, that's exactly.
I don't think.
I think of Eden more like my chickens. So a day after they're
Right.
hatched, they're basically walking.
Right. But Eden hasn't hatched yet. It's still in incubation.
No, we're here. I don't know, man. We're Eden.
Yeah,
we're
we're
hatched.
here.
We're grown men. Like, the thing is Eden doesn't need to be dependent on even official election. We have members. We have a membership. It's up to us.
Yeah, we're trying to grow a culture and a community at this point in time. That's where sort of bringing in members and like-minded folks that we're sort of can group up, and then once we get enough folks that are sort of kind of like-minded, we say, hey, look, what direction do we think is the best way to go? Okay, you think this way, you think this way. We throw them in the election process, and we figure out what's the best idea, and we go. That's kind of the whole point of all this. We don't know what best way is to go,
Nope.
but we all know, sort of. We can all figure it out real quickly. That's sort of the idea of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are in this phase now. When I say we, some of us, we want to have the most member, attract the most people, and witness a lot of people, invite. So we want numbers, but numbers on the side of the member, and also we need numbers on the side of the funding. So it's a chicken egg problem. Yeah, I understand. But I understand nothing indeed. So I just see that that's the problem, but I have not the solution.
A wise man knows he knows nothing, right, Patrick?
Yeah, I say the truth. I don't know nothing on this side. I have never done a BP. I don't know what it is. I have accessed the API's endpoint as a developer, but I don't know exactly how you run a BP. I have made.
The interesting thing is that there's more than one way. As Matthew pointed out, you can register and have very minimal things going on in the background. As long as you're not actually making blocks, you're not in the top 21, then how you run a BP is different than someone else who runs a BP who's actually in the top 21.
Matthew is a genius. He's a genius guy.
So we just need to figure out
a lot of genius guy in this community.
What's the bare minimum, bare bones, the most slim possible way to just run a BP without ever the intention of making a block that is sufficient to be okay with what block one would require, their minimum requirements, whatever that is, even if they can't check, assuming we're going to do it with integrity. Is that a profitable endeavor just with block one's votes alone? I mean, that's the kind of yes or no question. And I don't know, I think the answer is yes, there is a way to make it profitable, but there's some nuance. Is that fair? Matthew, Aaron, you guys still paying attention? Is that is like, yes, can the bare bones make money with no intention of actually producing blocks?
Yes, but then the problem is that you're corrupting the philosophy of Eden of being transparent and all good and whatever. Right? This is not a technical question. This is a governance philosophical discussion.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be hidden. Like, whatever their requirements are, not disingenuously saying you're doing it, but actually meeting block one's bare requirements. Is that something that is financially viable?
I don't know what are block one's bare requirements. They didn't say.
They must.
I don't think they're gonna throw any money that's not legally structured.
They should have had
so.
They don't have a bare. So what was Kevin talking about? He said it has to meet our requirements. That would have.
Well, the current requirements is that you must provide an opinion about what you think about Block One's funding plan to change, how inflation and all that stuff, right? So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So when will Eden publish a document that explains what the Eden community thinks about this? Because that's the current requirements that Block One has said that is required.
Where do they post? Like, is there a page? Do they have a page that you can go to and see their list, like the check boxes you need to hit?
It's coming soon.
Seriously, they don't have that. You're kidding. They don't have a list.
Here's a message from Kevin Rose on Telegram about voting. We will be including all BPs that provide feedback, comma, as well as a new group of BPs based on new voting criteria,
Which haven't been disclosed.
into a new voting slate in the next few weeks.
So
And then someone said, "What is the new criteria?" And he said, "Supporting specific open source projects that BPs undertake." And then people asked for more information, and he gave Anchor as an example.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Yeah.
where'd this happen?
So there is like something there. There is something there, but it's pretty vague. Yeah, it'd be nice.
Yeah, yeah.
A website.
He was also stating how we have calculated 3%. There is a 3% in your explanation, Chris, on the BP, where you say 3%. And he said how we arrive to this 3%.
I just quoted someone else, so it was easy for me. But
Yeah.
but back to what you were saying, just one sec before we go on there. So when John, when you read all this, Kevin said the new criteria, right? So does that mean there was no old? Like, is there no list I can go to that were the old criteria that they're updating, or they're just the new is the first?
Yeah, there was I believe that was posted. The criteria was that you had to have a valid producer JSON and a live API endpoint. That was on a website somewhere. I remember seeing. It's just the bare minimum, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
seem to remember seeing something somewhere, but I couldn't point you to it.
man, that's pretty crazy. So that, I mean, we got to. I'll ask him what. Well, I guess he's going to tell us what the new minimum is. They're the new requirements. Maybe you should ask him what the old ones are first. Oh man.
But yeah, the things that he is with Block One, when he is engaging with us in Telegram, he cannot speak exactly how he could speak if he was not with Block One. Like Dan Larimer, when he was with Block One, he was the hands a little bit tight, and maybe Kevin Rose, he cannot say exactly what he wants to say because he is with Block One. So
Of course, but Block One is an
I
entity
say-
who's trying to
I say
like
that why,
formalize.
because when you read what he answers, sometimes it's very vague, vague sometimes, and at the end he say, "I cannot guarantee." That's a little bit, I don't know. So
Anyway, it's fine. Of course, he can't guarantee because he's Block One. Block One can't guarantee anything. But
yeah, voilà.
Block One also, I would assume, unless this changes, but my assumption still
That's the
stands all
problem.
this time that Block One has EOS and Block One, at a bare minimum, has an image they want to at least maintain. At a minimum, they're going to have products. I mean, we have to assume at some point in time there's a product, and it's tied to their name, and they don't want to add more shit around their name if they can help it. So if Kevin Rose has said that if Eden has a BP and it meets the minimum requirements, I assume there was a minimum requirement, and we meet it, then we should be able to. Yes, he can't guarantee it, but he's basically also said he'd vote for Eden. So I'd like to see him change his mind and say, "Oh, you met the minimum requirement, Eden." And no, sorry, we changed your mind because you're not a person.
And it is a
I doubt that,
24/7 job to be a BP, to produce the blogs like Matthew. This is 24/7. You have to always to be there,
Yeah, but
monitoring.
if your goal is to not produce blogs,
Yeah.
just be a BP, then that's different.
Yeah, okay.
And that's the scope I think we should attack is bare minimum
Okay.
infrastructure that you could staff it sufficiently when the time came. Whatever they could say, oh no, but if so at least if you needed to, sure, okay, you could make blocks and you could ramp up, but you deliberately try not to, and you rate limit it,
Okay.
like what you're saying, John.
Okay.
Write a script where if you are about to enter the top 21, just dereg it
Mhm.
until I don't know, you fix it then. I don't know how you fix it. Tell
Okay.
Block One to stop voting for us
Hmm.
because we've got too much of the community, too much love. We've got ourselves into the top 21 even without Block One. Like that'll ever happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, Is that I still haven't heard so Matt is it the bare minimum, Matthew, that's fairly doable? Can you pay one guy like an ops person to take a contract with Eden?
Depends. We don't know what the bare minimum is. Block One didn't tell us.
Oh, we still don't exactly know. Yeah, right.
Ah, cool. John, he has published the link. Nice.
Yeah, we're 2 weeks away from less than 2 weeks away from trial election again, or test elections again. If we're going to sort of run on the platform, if someone needs to, or we need to kind of run on the platform, or we need to spin up a BP, that's kind of maybe we need to get together and run it through a mini mock election on sidelines. So do we need to waste more time on this? Yes, no, and go from there. I don't know what the best deal is, but speaking with my wife the other day, if I'm going to hold my values of what really Eden would be best for Eden in the EOS ecosystem, kind of what the platform am I going to run on? Am I going to run again? Am I going to run on my own project, or what would be the best? And if I'm going to hold true to my values and to Eden, I would say the best use of those funds would be to give it to people like with Aaron at Gray Mass. I don't think we could all agree that would be the best use of the funds for Eden and the EOS ecosystem. That would kind of pay for what has been lacking in funding, and sort of give a little cookie to get us a little bit further with these guys. Aaron, hats off to you guys over at Gray Mass. Sorry. They've been providing so much value to the ecosystem and been overlooked by everyone. I think at this point, I'll give up my seat just to kind of run through the platform of let's give this funding to Team Gray Mass. Let them do with it what they need to do with it.
You're not even giving.
That's kind of where I sit at this point.
You don't even
At
have to
this
give up
point,
your seat.
yes. Yeah.
You don't even have to give up your seat to do that, Todd. You can just say, "Hey, Gray Mass, I'd like to run on your behalf," and I'm sure.
That's kind of
tell us.
Huh?
That's sort of, I'm just kind of going with it, and I'm just kind of speaking out loud a little bit, and and we're getting close to that time of starting to run, and sort of what platform are we going to run? Or are we just going to wait till last minute and sort of pitch fest again? I don't think that's the best idea. So I'm just going to sort of put it out there and say, you know what, I'll put my weight behind Team Gray Mass.
I will say that for sure.
Maybe a better way to frame it too is, we would really like to hire people to speed up the work we're doing. That would be fantastic, but framing it as doing work similar or helping with our projects, like, it doesn't have to be money directed at us. We'd like to see other developers come into this space, whether it's on our team or in new teams that want to, help push the ecosystem forward in terms of the tools that we're missing. I think this message.
Yeah, you can have a super idea with your project, let's say, and you see the Team Gray Mass needed because you need a good integration with the ESR, the ESR standard, and the wallet integrate into your apps, into your dApps. So you make a synergy with Gray Mass at the same time. 1 + 1 = 3. That's nice. Or maybe with someone else, with PowerUp, with John Boyd. Why not? Like this, you have a triangle. So that would be just fantastic. And at the same time, you have the funds for your project, and at the same time, you create something with other people, and that's benefit the entire ecosystem. That's could be very nice.
Yeah. And to kind of walk us back a couple topics, the idea of wasting time, I think is it puts a negative spin on it, but like, in my opinion, I kind of align with that when it comes to the BP, is that it feels kind of like a waste of time, but that's not because it is a waste of time, it's because I think we should be focusing on bigger things. Like, I don't think that spinning up one more BP and even getting it to the top 21 is the sort of funding that we need to be flowing through Eden into projects to really help EOS elevate to compete with some of these other chains. Like we need a lot more than that. And so like while this topic of the BP, it gets us something, it for me personally it's not a big enough something. It doesn't fulfill the vision that I think I have for where this could go.
I don't think anybody who would, like, personally, when I look at thinking this is the BP is a good idea, I completely agree with what you're saying. It is nowhere near meant to be sufficient to actually get us where we want to go. It's this whole chicken egg problem where some people don't want to join right now. They don't see what's the incentive, what's the point, and part of it is there's not a lot of money involved. So if we can get 200 EOS a day and make the next mock election a 20,000 EOS prize compared to 2, I think we'll see Eden membership grow faster. And even though it's not where we end up, we want to see far bigger prize. We want millions of EOS potentially, right? So, but if we can get more people to join and get a bigger and do, like, we need to be doing trial elections in the East. There should be a Korean one and a Chinese one, and maybe we figure out how, because that's a big part of the community there and a lot of the BPs. And if we want them to turn on inflation, I think we're going to have to find a way to get the Chinese BPs more excited about this. And so I agree that adding a BP is nowhere near the final goal. It's just allows us to get more funding now to help us grow now, if you know what I mean.
Right. And this kind of brings us even further back towards the beginning of the conversation with, like, what good is Eden without the funding? I think you said something like that earlier, maybe, I don't know, a while ago.
Yeah.
But the comment that I was going to say at that point in time is I think that coming up with a cohesive plan may be more valuable than the funding itself. Like, if Eden could present a plan that's like, here, this is what EOS needs, like, and here's what it costs, here's some people that can do it, here's kind of something that can be executed on. I think that that's just as valuable as a situation where we have, I don't know, what's a month's worth of BP pay? 10,000 EOS? Like, here's what we did with a month's worth of BP pay.
Yeah, well, exactly.
The plan's valuable.
Why don't we, so the plan's valuable, exactly. So what we could do is have an Eden election with no prize and strictly have, just do the process with no prize, and all the ideas you have, Aaron, and anything that anyone else has that has, but requires big money. So a plan with a proper budget, and all that filters up to the top. And the prize, like, is that what Kevin's asking about? Is let's see, it's not a democracy, let's see some actual projects. So we do a Eden election, and the top elections come up, and it's like, we need 200,000 EOS or 200 grand or whatever. Everyone's got their budgets, and then that's the end of it. And we hand that to Block 1 and say, can you fund us? I mean, they might, and maybe that would.
Or the BPs.
Or the BP.
You know.
Yeah.
You say we have this much in RAM fees just laying around doing nothing. That was originally earmarked for worker proposals. Here is a list of worker proposals that the Eden community has come up with that need funding. Let's do it. And then based on the success of that, then the talks of, like, okay, now let's allocate inflation. Let's move maybe some of the fees over to it, or whatever the conversation about system generated funding is. You could make a pretty strong case for that after running a decent sized planning campaign. This is not my area of expertise. Like, I kind of know what we need, but I don't know exactly how to present that and pitch it.
That'll be the chat. I mean, essentially that'll be the future Eden. You'll be one of the guys, but also other people on your team and whomever, right? But yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if there's interest in that, to have just a no fee proper Eden election with just Eden members, like Eden member only, no fee, or like no prize, but a development of a plan election, and those who make it to the top pitch it.
I mean, maybe if you look at it as the development of the plan's going to cost money, so if the people who are elected just take whatever money's in the pool and then invest their time, hire people to help them come up with the plan, like, the generation of that plan is probably the size of one of these initial Eden budgets. It's like probably more.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, another interesting topic is, like, do elected Eden officials, if they're deep enough into the system and planning this stuff out, do they pay themselves?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't
I mean,
squared that
these
circle
could
yet.
become full-time jobs if the system gets moving big enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's where the core funding idea comes in. If Eden was received inflation funding, so it was a fixed amount that you knew about, you could have an Eden election and bylaws drafted such that so much of that funds were pulled and a certain percentage went to pay for an administrator, someone to run the elections, a planner possibly, but like some sort of actual staff to keep it running, keep it on the wheels. That's like a core funding piece. And then it's fully transparent, wages are known, but it does pay people to do the work.
I mean, the WAX ecosystem has the OIG, the Office Inspector General or something.
Okay.
And they are paid positions that effectively like evaluate the BPs and kind of create the rankings of them. And it's not a trivial job, and that's just one task. So I imagine that if you were actually trying to plan out what EOS needed as a whole, whether that's like some sort of translatey stuff, whether that's adoption and wallet stuff, whether it's protocols or APIs or whatever, like planning all that out is going to be more complicated than picking BPs. So it's
I thought Block One was supposed to do all that.
Block One builds the software. That's all they do.
All they did. I guess there's updates. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be so hard to Block One.
They've
Yeah,
done one thing and they've done it well.
Yeah.
I was about to say, Block One gets a very bad rap, but in all, they've done, I can't say everything they said.
Not
they would do,
everything.
'cause
No.
There's some things that haven't been done yet, but soon. But for the most part, as far as back to the token sale, where everybody got their tokens. If you were sort of a Genesis member, you got what you paid for, and they released the software to the world, and here you go. You can use it.
I mean, okay, Todd, but I agree with you looking back. But part of me still, if I'm being honest, I feel like I was misled slightly. Do you feel like maybe you were misled a little bit on some of the narrative and some of the talk during that crowd sale, and then looking back 3 years later?
No.
No,
not
see,
really,
and that's
no.
where we just have a difference.
I really
I
don't.
feel misled slightly.
I feel like there's a piece of open source software out there, a very powerful piece of software out there that anybody can use for free. There's plenty of SaaS companies out there that people pay $100 to $250 a month for all day long. And here we are, we have a blockchain-based software that's completely open. Anybody can go build on it right now. I'm not a developer, but I have a shopping cart page that, with the thanks of with the wallets like GrayMass that has provided an anchor, I've got a 2-click login and 1-click shopping cart. I'm about to roll out here soon. Any day now. So, these softwares can be deployed by non-developers like myself. And so that's sort of the reason why I've stayed in the EOS ecosystem, sort of looking for that cookie crumble, where the easiest route is for non-developers to come in and entrepreneurs to come in and take any one of these damn blockchains and actually freaking build something with it. It actually can be usable. And, so I don't see any other chains doing that. So I don't see where the ball's been dropped on EOS. We got a bad rap because of Block One, but the tech is there. The tech is ready to roll. The tech is miles beyond anybody else. So it's like
some of the resource issues, the tech always wasn't there, and there's still. I guess Aaron could speak to, right? Like the lack of continuity in wallets infrastructure, and I think there's still a lot of hurdles.
We are all on the table. All is on the table. There are the knights are on the table, and now we have to share the food and to use that correctly, and that's the point. We have all the tools, we have all we need, the performance is there, power up is there, all is there now, and now we need the motivation of the people. So we have to motivate the people. That's my mission.
We want a decentralized ecosystem and a centralized technology, but we want a centralized company to kind of lead control in it. That's not really how it works in my view. It's up for the people to kind of step up, and it's been 3 years, and I just feel like enough folks haven't haven't stepped up in the right way. I don't know what it is. It's
Yeah, maybe
a
we need
combination
some
of many
modeling
different
space.
things.
Why not? Yeah, maybe.
I think people just need to build products that work and people can use easily. Like, one of the main things is build a product that your grandma can use and doesn't even know that it's a blockchain. She just can use it. Nobody has to know that these things are on blockchains and all this. It just needs to be fast. It needs to be easy, and cheap, preferably free. And so once
It
that can
is,
get
it
accomplished,
It is.
Yeah.
Now that we speak, it is. You see EOS Marketplace, EOS Microloan, they work with EOS Mainnet and no other blockchain, just the EOS
Yeah.
Mainnet. And they are
Yeah.
doing fantastic things. There is also this tool now, named the CryptoMinder.biz, where you see if EOS is increasing the price or is decreasing, and you can react in time. That's a good tool they are developing there. But because they are in struggles, they are in problem, they have to find something. Us, we are not yet in the real problem. So maybe we are a little bit not so reactive, because I don't say that no one is working. It's not the point. It's just that the users that are in US, or the users that are in Switzerland, or the users that are in other Europe don't see the real benefit now, and that will come later on, as always, when you see yourself that it is the case. But there in LATAM, it is already the case. In Colombia, Venezuela, it's already the case. And imagine that they use the private key when they have to go, because they have problem with the internet communication. So they use their private key directly. So yeah, but
Yeah. I mean, in all fairness, like, this is great, and I agree. Yes, people can build on it, absolutely. But if EOS was everything what you're saying it is, then we wouldn't need Eden, or Pomelo. And so I obviously it's still not perfect, and I think that's the point, right? Like, there's still lots of work that needs to be done. I think Aaron made a really good point. How do you coordinate? Who gets the administrator? Who's like trying to orchestrate all of these different things that need to be done, and then who's doing it? And so you do need centralization. I mean, that's why I jokingly said I thought Block One was doing that, because I mean, it sounds like they're not going to do code updates if that's one of the things Eden could do. Is Eden going to basically like have teams write service level or system level contracts that BPs take, and maybe
Block One's their own engineering company, and they're going to work with their own, they're spin up their own blockchain as a service, and they're going to do their own thing. They kind of, say, here you go. You want this centralization? Here you go. You got it. Here you go.
Yeah, I mean, that's the common narrative that has been wrong since launch, is that B1 is in control of EOS, and it's not true. B1 builds the software that EOS runs, but EOS is run by the BPs.
Right.
Like, EOS was launched by the BPs.
Yeah.
Block One was not involved in the launching of EOS.
Never.
And you could arguably say, why haven't all the block producers funded projects? Why is all the pressure on B1 to fund everyone? I know that it's with the EOS VC,
$4 billion of pressure. Failed. That's all. They're just holding up $4 billion. That's the pressure they're feeling to give back.
Yeah. I feel like at this point, hey, that's the price that the world had to pay for this great software. I don't know what else to say.
With marketing like you've never seen, and $1 billion into VCs to invest back into the EOS, that all didn't happen. So that's why I feel let down. I'm glad you're happy with Block One, Todd, and I don't want to take that away from you.
I never said I'm happy. Don't put words in my mouth. I never said I'm happy. Never once said I'm happy with them. I just said that I think they're getting a lot of the shit into the stick when they have done some of the things. Yeah, I never said once I'm even remotely even happy with.
I said I was disappointed, and you said you weren't. So I mean, I don't know what emotions are between being happy and disappointed. There must be a middle one.
Yeah, no. I don't think that anybody's really happy with Block One from the outside. Unless you kind of work for them, then you're super happy. The biggest issue I have with Block One is sort of the misunderstanding of for all the things that Dan had done and produced underneath the Block One brand never got open sourced, and it's sort of all now closed behind lock and key. I think that's sort of the biggest sort of downfall about all of Block One. All that stuff that Dan has been creating and building the last couple of years, now all under lock and key. I think that's the biggest travesty of it all. Not the funding that we're not getting. I think all that stuff that the world is not going to get now because it's all under lock and key. I think that's the biggest loss
But
that we've had.
I mean, bottom line, I think we all agree at this that we just want to move on, and it's almost like talking about this.
Yeah.
I think we all agree. It doesn't change anything. I mean, you know, right? We're just
It's all like
it's
therapy.
so how do we
It's
move
therapy,
forward?
man.
And yeah, right. So
Right.
if we're forward at I mean, Aaron made a really good point. The BPs are the ones that are in charge of EOS. So I think that's the angle we have to take. So maybe you do
Nick
this.
Nick Sabo kind of gave this analogy once that the block producers were sort of like the feds, and the builders and the cryptographers were sort of like the banking system. So it's sort of similar. You know, you can kind of see it now that it's all been playing out, that these block producers have a lot more kind of say and weighted power than even maybe they should. But that's sort of one of the best things that's going for EOS is the delegated proof of stake concept, and that we are kind of far more decentralized than the other chains because of so. But that creates this issue to where it's like, who's in charge? What's in charge? Where do we stand for? Who's the leader? Where's the narrative going? And nobody's really kind of grabbed a hold of that and said, here we go, we're going this direction. Let's go. And I hope that's what Eden kind of does. That's what intrigues me with Eden. Maybe we can all kind of come together and figure out what the F is the best direction to go, and let's go somewhere.
Maybe that's
go.
That's where I was saying maybe we just do this Eden election, members only, no prize, and we just do it so that, and then people, it's going to be work, and I mean the presentations don't have to be perfect, but at least if we can get a rough idea of some of the bigger projects that need funding, and then have it all aggregate to the top and present it to the block producers essentially, and say, hey, turn on inflation, and it'll fund these things that we've just gone through the process. But probably it could be a colossal waste of time because they say no, and we put all this energy in to do that, and nothing comes out.
Right. I think where Block One could come in there is if they agreed with that idea, they can use their voting weight to say, hey, BPs, we're only going to vote for those of you that support this. And then BPs have to more heavily consider if this is a good idea, because now it has the weight between from a giant stakeholder. And other large stakeholders could probably do the same thing as well.
Yeah, totally.
Good idea.
I mean, that's how the consensus of the top 21 is supposed to work. It's, if the token holders want the BPs to do something, they need to flex that weight of tokens and say, hey, we're not going to vote for you anymore unless you push this through. So it's a tough situation.
But maybe that's what we try. Like there's the only loss there is time, because it's time to organize a pitch and then time to pitch it. And so if there's enough interest from Eden members, and you do an Eden only, it doesn't even have to be through what Clarion's developing, like through the on-chain stuff. It could still be done the hack way, like we've been doing it, which works. So yeah,
The Eden concept can be done with a deck of cards.
Yeah, exactly, right?
We don't
Yeah,
need
yeah.
tech.
I'm just saying, like, I don't know. I'm impatient, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
so, but patience are important. So perhaps I'm just a bit too pushy. But I feel like if this is something, like, this is a good idea, just to do a no prize proper election with the assumption there was the inflation prize. How would we allocate our funds if with the assumption that there was this big prize? Do it and present it to BPs. So instead of waiting for funding to then have our big election, right? Because that seems like this chicken or egg again. We need to get more. We need 1,000 so we can have the first official election. But was that going to be funded? Like once we got to 1,000, did the BPs ever say we turn on inflation for you? I don't think they'll do it. They're still going to be unsure. So maybe we say, fuck it. We're not going to get to 1,000 anytime soon. Let's just do it what we have. And we've got a lot of great people and projects in the current membership. In fact, they're probably and then we can let other ones know that are sitting on the fence. Oh, what's in it for me? Like maybe the folks from Emanate haven't joined or whomever else. If we say, look, we're going to have an official, unofficial, unfunded election, join if you want to participate and be part of the overall top 6 projects, top 6 people to get to the top, or however the voting, how many people you want to have in the top round.
We got 2,500 EOS on the line, and I don't know how many people are signed up to do this next election, but
yeah, but
got money on the line, still can't entice people. I don't know what, like I said, I'm just getting back from vacation for a couple of weeks. I've kind of been out of the loop for a little bit. I don't know exactly what's been going on, but the numbers seem to be, steadily rising. We got an increase of 20% increase in the last 10 days or so. It looks like so.
Yeah, I think in terms of prize to draw people in, $10,000 or $20,000 isn't 10 million. Like it just night and day in terms of the interest we're going to get. So
when you need funding to build something, you need millions of dollars, not thousands of dollars. Thousands of dollars to build the software. It's like it's a drop in the bucket. What are you going to do with a few $1,000? It's like
it's about the scale. Right? It's like you can do stuff, but you're not going to do as much as you could. And EOS needs a major kick in the ass that is just public facing kick in the ass. Like just to show people, look at the money we're about to deploy on EOS stuff, regardless of what it is.
Yeah.
Right? Almost that would be good sentiment to all of a sudden have people look at EOS again. And, there's investment going on in EOS. There's actually, maybe developers might come back or be hired back who already know EOS but left to work on other chains, but now they can be brought. Like Aaron's saying, you want to add people to your team. Well, that's part of the pitch, right? You want to be able to build X, Y, Z, and Z, and you need to, and this is the cost. And then, you get funding and you hire the people to do it. It doesn't have to be just work from your existing team. It would be like a growth thing, right?
Yeah.
I think also the goal of this election 17 is, at my opinion, that could be also to see if we are able to work together. So imagine for a moment there is no prize, there is not all these numbers, all these things. We go on the 17, we go round after round, we find the best ID in our group. At the end, maybe we are a good team and we are aligned with what we want to build, and we do a good evaluation what we need as funding. After that, we go with a proposal, a concrete proposal to the I would say to the funding guys. We go with this good proposal. We say we want to build that. We will to include Encore. We want to include Power Up. We want to include like a good mix. And we have a concrete proposal.
Not to us. Yeah. But we would run the Eden election, and whoever wins. Like that's the whole point. You want to trust. We want to instill trust in the process, and the process means there's nothing pre-selected. So and then on the election on the 17th, we're going to have non-members as well. So we can't use that one for any of this bigger picture stuff, right? We'd have to have another one that would be Eden members only, and strictly for the purpose of seeing what proposals aggregate to the top to then pitch it to the BPs, because that's the funding people. So the funding people are the BPs. We just pitch it to them. And I think what Aaron said about, or whoever said about having Block 1 apply pressure to say, yeah, we agree with these proposals, because Kevin, I need to get caught up again, but he did make some comment a while ago about not wanting you need people with ideas at the top, and it's not being a democracy or something along those lines, which to me I read as he wants to see actual proposals.
But he said that also today.
Oh, he did?
In the Eden EOS Telegram, if you go through the messages, I don't know where is the message exactly now.
Okay. Yeah, so there you go. So that's the answer.
He was stating that. Come with your project, come with a good proposal.
Right.
And
so that's the answer.
Open.
Let's run an Eden election. I think that's if he said that, then I think we should try. There's no harm. The only harm is time. So how much time have we already given into this and have it yield minimal fruit, right? So what's one last kick the old can, and then see what rises to the top. Have it. I mean, we should have good participation. If it's members, like we should. I mean, if people are in this for the right reason, this is your first show up and be there for the first round at least. I mean, that's the hour-long commitment, and only a handful need to move on who actually are serious about trying to get funding.
Yes.
And if you're not looking for serious funding, don't waste your time.
I think we got really lucky with you, Chris, that you know, you're kind of in this to win it, and but we could have easily got someone who said, "Hey, look, I want the funding. I'm out of here. Adios, guys." And that was all well and fine. You could have done that. That was you know, anybody could have just said, "Hey, look, I want the funds. Adios. It was nice playing y'all's little game. I'm gone." And that can happen again this next time because there's no commitment to say, "Hey, look, you've got to put it back into our little project we got going on here." If we're opening it to the public can say, "Hey, look, we don't give a shit what
but
you
you
got
can
going
also
on."
have the funds and say, yes, I want to share my funds with others.
Yeah,
to do something
we
in
can,
common.
and we're in agreement that we should all do this. But we're you know, inviting outside members into this next election on the 17th.
Yeah.
They're not even members of Eden. They could just say,
Yeah,
"Hey,
but
look, we don't give a shit what you guys want to do."
Yeah,
Of
that's
course.
cool.
So
Yeah,
we
that's
got lucky
cool.
with Chris.
Of course.
That you know, he's in it to win it, and we've kind of put the money towards good use. And Void, the Void project, we put the money in there, and John has built products that he said he was going to build. Everything's well, and so far so good. You know, there'll be more return on that investment as we go along. You know, we get more users and can use it. But
the thing with people, like someone walking off in this next election, right now, I think the majority of the people who are going to be in that are people who are aware of Eden, obviously, and somewhat committed already. So there's going to be a higher percentage of people involved who actually care. So if you take that in consideration, they are going to be the ones do the randomization. There'll be we'll have extra weight of good sensibility, right? Of picking good people. So,
and to get to that second or last level and to not and for the consensus to not believe that you're going to do good with that money, then the system has sort of failed if that's the case. And if somebody gets through like that, then hey, look, the system wasn't really, you know,
and
as hard as we thought.
The defense of the people we have too is also going to be, I'm going to make my round not to send anybody forward. Like the power of your vote in a small group is to pick somebody, but it's also to derail somebody else who wait, there's a collusion going on in this group and a bad idea. The randomization has made it so like I'm in this bad actor trying to steal this and move forward because their people are on their side and I don't agree with it. You might have extra power there just to be the no vote that doesn't allow you to reach 2/3 + 1. So there's going to be power there too. And the other thing if you believe in the Eden system, which I do, I think it selects for trust. And yes, I could have been a sociopath and absolutely lied. Everything I said could have been a lie. I could have lied to John about work wanted. I could have fully lied and won and walked away. 100% that could have happened. Fortunately, I'm not a sociopath. And then really, how many sociopaths are actually out there? I mean, there's a few.
Probably
but,
more than me.
Right, there's a few, but not a high percentage. I mean, the most people have some sort of moral compass and a heart. And the fact that this is looking in a video and like it makes it different.
We're talking about money here, man. People do crazy shit for money.
I'm the best guy. Imagine the guy that is doing shit into this next election. Okay, this is recorded. If I know that someone has shitted this system, I take the video and I publish that on Twitter everywhere. Okay, he will be in a nightmare.
You could,
night and day. So that will be a nightmare for him.
Yeah, man.
Well,
but you could though. Yeah, why not?
That's part of
we could do. We have the video. We have all recorded, so that's the beauty. So why not?
Yeah, it's part of the reputation system in Eden. If you get a bad reputation, then you're out. You know.
You hope
Imagine
so.
Someone
This is the test.
2008, and he goes running for this election, and he's doing bad image, a dick, a jerk. I don't know how you say that.
Yeah.
Okay. He do all his best to do the bad thing. Okay. So the reputation is broken. All is broken. All the visibility that you have done until now is broken. Now we have the chance to do something fantastic. So, and where can we do that now? In this real world, there is no chance. So we will be very bastard to not behave correctly. But it's sad to wait 3 years to have Eden. We should have Eden already since the beginning, or maybe not have Eden, just collaborate together. But seems that the human is not able to do that. That's
When we had Dan under lock and key, that was the problem. You know.
Yeah, you'll have to ask Dan why he didn't write his book earlier. What the hell, Dan? Come on. You should have put this out years ago. Decades ago, the world needed this. Well, better late than never. And there's people who are here. We're committed. We're trying.
Surprising if any non-Eden members are able to get to the final round. I have just to agree with him. Yeah.
Say that again?
He said it will be surprising if any non-Eden members are able to get to the final round. Joshua.
Right, Josh said that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
No,
agree.
it's clear.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, this is where it's cool, right? This is the experiment.
It
We're
could technically happen, but that's all.
less than 2 weeks away.
Is there.
Do you guys have? Do you know what you're gonna do the next one? I assume you're both participating.
Myself.
Yeah, Patrick and Todd. You
No,
guys.
myself. I will want to try to go round after round. Why not? I have already accepted, so we will see. Maybe I will say myself after the first round already. No, okay. I have seen that in my group someone has a fantastic idea. I was maybe never expecting that, and I will sustain him and support him like you do, like you did, Chris, with John Boyd. That was nice. I was looking the strategy round after round. That was very interesting to see. And that was consistent. That was very consistent round after round. John also. So that was nice to see.
It makes it
You
easy
see
if you just be yourself. Then consistency comes second nature, right?
Speak the truth. Yeah. With giraffe balls.
Yeah, right. Try not to be. I mean, I've been accused of being a politician sometimes in the ESGov channel, and it's like that's not a. I look it up on Google, and the definition of politician. I mean, unfortunately, the word kind of can apply to anybody depending on what you're talking about.
Yeah,
so.
I don't go into that place anymore. I stay out of there.
That channel.
It's a headache.
Good choice. Well, I shouldn't say that. I admit I should say it's a great channel.
Yeah, it's a great channel. Just
No.
Sometimes it's good.
Bullish Telegram.
Sometimes EOSGov has some great moments. There's some great discussion. There's some definitely really smart people in there. But it gets. I don't agree. I don't personally think that everyone there is there with the right intention. That has the best in EOS in their positive mind. I think there's some people there who don't necessarily want EOS to do well, and that's the problem.
This is for this reason that in Bullish Telegram we try to stay. I say the truth. I try to make my role. I am an admin there. I don't want to ban everyone, but at a point when someone is coming always with the same narrative, repetitive narrative, depressive narrative, okay, at a point we have to say, okay, we are here to strive EOS. If you are not okay with EOS, what you are doing here? So you can go in other Telegram and do your stuff. If you are not okay with EOS, go in other Telegram. Or if you have some complaining, go directly speak with the people and don't do that publicly in front of the other people in the same group. It's not so fair, because if you have something to say to someone, it's better to say directly in a message private than to say that publicly in the flow, and that's break the conversation, that's break the good sentiment that was 5 minutes before, and yeah, that's
so.
Yeah.
John wrote something interesting here in the chat.
That's life. That's like that.
John wrote something pretty cool in the chat here. It's in line exactly what we're saying. So he's saying Eden Platforms, basically you register a list of projects you will support and fund, and you split based on percentage of funds you would receive. Each project has an owner who writes a profile describing how they will use their funds received. Eden members can vote for user platforms. Candidates can share a simple link to their platform page so anyone can see what they will support, how many Eden members support them. So basically, we create like a bulletin board,
nice.
An Eden bulletin board where projects and individuals within Eden can post what they need funding for in advance of an election, which I think makes a ton of sense. and then
Yeah,
members can.
and Mark Scheer he has made a list of projects on eoscommunity.org, Google Excel, Google spreadsheet with all the current project, and where you can see what are the projects. That's a good tool in advance before the election. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. You can have a good idea of who'd win the election before it even starts. That I find the most interesting piece. Because you would probably, if you did say it's 100, we've got 130 members, and it depends how many good projects there are. So if you get
once it starts scaling, though, that's gonna create an issue. Once it starts scaling, how are you gonna have time to sort of it is a good idea because sort of the main players, hey, if you want to
at the question
stuff
of
out there,
John,
it'd be really good.
Sorry.
So that people, hey, look, you already kind of know about this project. That'd be really good. But I think once it starts scaling, you have thousands of people.
It's the case.
How are you going to?
Yeah, or at least what project will be funded? He say, or at least what project will be funded. That's you have in the spreadsheet.
This is a good one for the 17th. Then I think that's what you're.
Yeah.
I know Mark or Aaron said use the Eden funding to have the system built. So yeah, we could. That could be for one of the 2,500 EOS that's up for grad in the next one.
That's sort of the platform that I ran on last time. I had to say, hey, look, I sort of split it up into tiers and said, this first group, what projects can I help you with? And I said I've saved a little bit of the funding to the next group and said, what can we do? And the last third of it was to put directly back into Eden for marketing, for video purposes, for hosting purposes, for all the little the nuances that we're going to need to sort of get this thing together. It's all the diapers, it's all the pacifiers, it's all the the blankets and the bottles that the little baby needs when it's born, sort of to get going.
Obvious question maybe once again. Okay, I have answered to the Google form to register, as many of us, I think. I have a right that I want to run. Okay, I have received
Hey, John.
Sorry.
Feel free to jump in if you want to answer. So when I think this is a good idea when you say build something, is this something that would go on a website that would be tied to people's EOS accounts and do it voting that way? When it's because you said you had the idea for a while to build it, but you don't have time. What do you mean by what would you have to build? What are you talking about?
I was thinking it's like a web app, like the Genesis web app, where you log in with your EOS account, and then if you're an Eden member, you can browse the platforms and projects, and you can vote. Like maybe what's the form of voting called where you list candidates in order of priority?
Rank ballot, yeah.
Right. So exactly. So like a ranked ballot where you would maybe say you would rank 5 candidates, your top 5 candidates. If each Eden member went ahead and ranked their top 5 candidates on this site, we would already have a very good, indication, right? And how do people decide who, which candidates to vote for? They would look at that candidate's platform, and their platform is made up of a list of projects that they would fund. This is all like the web app, right? This is all pages on the site. Mm-hmm. So the candidates would register, and they would have a list of projects that they will fund. Those projects would be split percentage based on how much money they receive, based on however much money you receive as a candidate. And the candidate could also vote for other candidates. Like if I'm not able to make it, I would vote for, these to go, these other candidates to go forward for me or whatever. And I would have, as a candidate, you could mark a project in your platform as like, non-negotiable, like I won't remove this, or I'm not going to change this percentage, or like flexible, like I'm willing to increase or decrease or remove this based on conversations that I have during the election. So you could imagine live during the round, based on your conversation, you might have like some flexible space in your platform to add and remove projects in order to support those that are voting for you. And you can even have You can even have, as a candidate, you can even have a link to your profile, like in your image, like in Zoom, like in your background image.
Yeah.
So you don't even have to describe it. You just, as soon as the call starts, you know, they can get your site and read it, right?
So basically, it
Interesting
becomes
when you
it
say,
becomes
John,
the pitch.
because-
It's the pitch
Yeah.
location. So now, when everyone goes on and we're going to do our respective pitches, instead of having like doing screen share and taking over for their like PowerPoint, you basically go to this site and the pitches, the proposals are there, and like where you can click through and it's basically it's all there in one place.
But Brandon Freshner, Brandon, yeah, he was stating the last time in a call that when we will be in an election, when we are in Zoom, we will be able to discover the profile of the guys that are with us in our group, that we can click, like John say now, to discover the things. And when the pool is terminated, finished, you are all in the same room together to speak, like us now, in a open room where we can speak together. That was I don't know if he has planned to do that for the 17, or if it is for longer term. I don't know.
I think it's a cool idea, John. I really love it. I mean, because it also would allow people, in terms of like what Aaron was saying earlier about like how much work it is to create an actual proposal, and then try to coordinate amongst other proposals. It could be perhaps a location at least to have like a members only access to at least start to put up proposals, and then see what other proposals are existing, and try to use that as the platform to collaborate and work together.
Here's another idea. Since we're building a Pomelo crowdfunding platform, maybe Eden wants to plug into that and put some Eden-specific features into, well, this is proposed by an Eden member, certain Eden members voted for it, and then you could, use that. And that way you've built a community that's grouped together instead of building a separate platform. Right now you can get community funding plus Eden funding from the same platform.
So indeed, you can begin with an ID in Eden and not finish, but you can transit in Pomelo after. Maybe.
There could be both. They're not even mutually exclusive.
The fact that you're an Eden member gives your any tokens that you contribute to a project in Pomelo, maybe it gives it more weight because you're a,
so
valid
it's not
Eden member that we know who you are, right? So one of the things that in Pomelo is trying to prevent Sybil, right? So being an Eden member is potentially a good candidate to say that that's a unique person.
A good entry point. Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm just
it's a very good
there.
value. Yeah, it's a very good value prop as being a member of Eden.
A good value.
We are all yes, one of the biggest value props, in my opinion, of being an Eden member is that we all know that we're real people, and that we've been selected and vetted, and we can kind of know and trust at least that bare minimum, until we can kind of work on relationships from there.
Yeah, for me, we have three apple. We have the Eden apple, we have the Pomelo apple, and we have the EOS starter apple. So you can enter in Eden and transit in other ecosystems. So you are in collaborative ecosystems. That's the beauty.
Hey, Matthew, when so with Pomelo, then you guys are developing it. When you're done, like when it's a live product, are you still going to be sort of holding the reins on any modifications or upgrades? Like, are you guys like a long-term sort of provider of that service? Are you allowed to say?
I think I can say the answer is yes. I mean, just because we release something and it happens to work for one funding round, it doesn't mean that that's the end of it, right? Software is never complete.
Right. I just meant like, because I know you got a grant, like you got a grant from B1 to build it, and with EOS Asia. It's more like, is it something that's going to provide at least some funding to you guys to keep advancing it? And I hope you do. Like I mean, like you say, it's never complete.
The idea is the platform is supposed to be self-funding.
Okay.
Right. So for every grant you take a 1% commission or something, you know, whatever.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So that means, so good. So this idea of later on, because Eden obviously still needs to mature, but this is a great way to overlap. That's super clever.
Yeah, and if we can collaborate instead of building something, two similar things twice, you know, how can we collaborate to build one thing that's more powerful? So
yeah,
that's kind of a question I was wanting to ask is that Pomelo and EOS Starter sounds a little bit similar. Is there a little bit of cross? Is there a little bit of overlap there? Chris, you got a mouthful.
No, sorry.
You know, kind of
my dinner.
No, go ahead.
No, it's all right. I talk about food all the time. I'll just try to be articulate.
I'm really interested in you know in both of the platforms. So just like I said, I've been out of the loop for a couple of weeks, so I'm just kind of not sure if I've missed something.
The biggest difference is just target market, sort of, right? So Pomelo is focused on creating public goods, and it's because it's using fund donors like Block One, for example, to start it off, and then the quadratic matching of individual donors. That's pretty focused on public goods. And Matthew, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's a fair summary of the focus. Where EOS Starter is willing to also, like, EOS Starter's main mission is to help EOS build shit on EOS. So if it happens to be a public good and EOS Starter can help facilitate that getting built, then we're not exclusive, or like we won't exclude public goods. So there's a way you could overlap a Pomelo funding round, and then if EOS Starter can help facilitate the delivery of what they're actually trying to do, like say you have a project comes in and they don't quite have a team built up, and EOS Starter is trying to position itself as being able to like provide service to help companies kick out on EOS faster, then there could be an overlap. But generally, EOS Starter is also looking to just kick projects onto the mainnet that are for profit. So they're going to have a token maybe, and the token has utility, and the token is also going to be something like that won't be a Pomelo focus. So that's sort of the difference, but there is potential overlap still.
Yeah, good.
We're like an incubator launch pad that's also could be very for profit.
An incubator and incubation.
Yeah.
You know,
so
look forward to that. So, you know, and to answer, go back to a little bit of your question before, you know, kind of what, you know, we're all going to run on. I mean, I'm still looking for still the best projects to kind of help support, push the right direction. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think the idea of trying to build up something to do this like John, what you're saying, to build that, like I don't think that could be built directly on Pomelo per se. Like they could tie to each other, but should we wait for Pomelo, Matthew, and then create some sort of dashboard there that projects get listed that could be Eden projects? Like, is that something we should just sort of hold off for, and maybe there's an overlap there?
Don't know. Maybe you want to talk to Daniel about that question, Chris, because he's leading the Pomelo project, so he could say more what the timing is and when those kind of features might show up.
Because that might be good enough, right? Like if I assume Pomelo is going to have some sort of listing and explanation of projects.
For sure.
So
that's going to be like the main thing, because you have to be able to see all the projects so you can vote on them, right? So
does that make sense, John? Or there could be a total overlap, or should it be separate?
Gitcoin has this feature where you can make a list, like as a curate, you can like curate projects into a list, and then as a donator, you can just hit like spread my donation across everything in this list, or you can like pick things out of the list. So I'm just going to assume that Pomelo will have a feature similar to that. So that's better than nothing. But it's not, it doesn't really bind you to like, I'm going to fund these projects this amount for this round of Eden, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like not a replacement, but it would be nice to have. And I
agree that
it's going to be built in to Pomelo from the start.
Yeah, I agree that the Eden requirement would not be there because, you know, the basic idea from Pomelo came from Gitcoin, right? So, but it doesn't mean that those features couldn't be built, right? So if the community thinks that those are important features, then they could go in that direction. So I'm not going to promise that everything that Gitcoin does is going to be available the day Pomelo launches. For sure, that's not the case, right? There'll be some features there, and then it's going to be up to the feedback in the community which direction we want to go, right? So,
yeah, and maybe it's just because if we want to have Eden member unique access, so you'd have to sign in with your Eden account and sign in with those set of keys, and maybe there is just so go ahead.
No, I was going to say that is perfectly reasonable requirement to have. As I said, Pomelo needs to be Sybil resistant. So anything that makes it more Sybil resistant is a good feature to have. So signing in as an Eden member and having a check mark that this is an Eden member seems like a really good feature to me. Yeah. So we don't have to argue that point. When that will show up, who knows. But...
No, I only mean like where if during an election we want to go to a page and it's going to show an Eden access only thing, and you're going to see all the projects listed that could be a click to the Pomelo listing of the project, but at least the aggregation of people's vote and their vote weight and their willingness to
and maybe that part belongs as an Eden specific UI, right? That pulls the data out of Pomelo and reorganizes it in an Eden way.
Exactly.
And that would be perfectly reasonable to do that kind of thing as well.
That would make a lot of sense.
I think a way to think about this is that we need two separate silos of information. We need one that is like a list of projects and initiatives and all this other great stuff that people are proposing that needs to be done, and that sounds like it could be Pomelo in some ways, but maybe not exclusive to Pomelo. It could be a source of that information. Others could exist. And then I think what John was talking about for this other stuff is we also need like a candidate profile system where you can, assemble a profile about what you're doing while you're running. And you just need that source, the other side, the project list of to make your decisions based upon. And that could be Pomelo, that could be something else. It could be a forum post, it could be a blog post, it could be, ideally it's going to be some sort of system that aggregates all of these ideas together.
Yeah.
So that way candidates can come up with like an informed position about what they'd want to do. I'm sure that when you look at like modern governments, they have some sort of system or something where it's like, here's all of the initiatives that, you as a representative of this government could vote on or push forward or whatever.
Right, and they're not all projects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we need kind of like the index of like, here's potential uses of money for the candidates to then choose from. And then this profile page could be built upon that data. So I think that the project listing, the project index is probably the more important component, because then you could use that during the video calls if you didn't have a candidate profile, but you can't have the candidate profile without some sort of like source of projects and initiatives and other things we do. So I know that's one thing I'm working on right now, is figuring out a way to communicate what I think needs to be done, whether it's from our team on our projects or other projects we haven't started, or projects I think other teams need to take on in general. I want to come up with a list and be like, here's a bunch of stuff that I think is needed for this ecosystem. Like, let us do it, let somebody else do it, whatever. But like, where do I put that data? Right now, it's probably going to be a forum post. But if there was a more structured way for me to present this information, so you could search through it and filter it and like browse by category, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, and it would help answer a lot of these questions about, because it's so ethereal. Yeah, what's Eden going to do? What's the point? So at least if we could start having some sort of source of truth and aggregation of these ideas, and then so it's also worth the trouble of creating the proposals too, right? If someone knew there was a place to put it, and people were looking at it like Kevin Rose, it's like, here's the list of stuff, Kevin, that Eden's actually looking to try to do. It'd be worth the trouble.
Yeah,
because currently there is EdenEOS.org, there is Notions, there is EOScommunity.org. You have 3 different places, and this is the vision. Basically, this is explained the vision of Dan there. And now we are running with this vision. We are enriching us, and we have to also make our vision and explain what is Eden operationally to the people that would, let's say, put their funds in us. They need to understand, basically the investors, indeed, the investors. We have to convince the investor why they should put their funds. So we have not this narrative for the moment. We have not yet. Yeah. And this is maybe the place where Mark has already made the list, the spreadsheet. If that would be published more easily, like that, the candidates can knows each other, and also the investor can knows. That's cool, nice. Yeah. Would be nice.
Yeah, where's the place for it?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Where is a place for it?
And who could write on it, and yeah, how accessible, right?
Where is the place for this information?
Yes, that's correct. That's my question.
EdenOS.org.
So I could submit it to Brandon French and see what he has to say. How's that sound?
Because Mark, you have made a GitHub for the calendar. I have seen myself. I have put my mind map, and now we could put a page with the different project. And I know that Brandon was proposing that the last time that he spoke with Chris, and there was also Dominic in this call, and he spoke how it should be the day where we are maybe not the 17, but maybe long term, maybe later on. And he has this idea too, that the candidate can knows each other, and at the end of a election they can be in a room just like now to speak open mic like that. And yeah, he has the ideas now, exactly what is the stage of that. And yeah, but for the 17, if we have at least a page that we can see the project, that we can dive into, that will be on edeneos.org, for example.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea for now to see what's, yeah.
This is not so complicated to do for the 17. It's realistic and in time. It's not something big. It's just a page with the project, so it's not so.
Yeah, we need more stuff.
Yeah, we need always more, but we have not time. Not a lot of time also. So.
All right, I'm on 2 hours here, fellas, and I got another day at kids camp to do tomorrow that I am not prepared for. So I need to get my materials ready for the egg catapult challenge. I'm gonna do a slingshot, a 4-post slingshot between a soccer net, and instead of doing like an egg drop challenge where you got to put the egg inside of a container to make sure you can drop it from height, I'm gonna catapult the egg contraption across a field, and it has to survive.
There you go.
So
leave it to Satoshi.
I'm dealing with 8 to 12-year-olds here, so you know, if I can entertain grown-ups, I can certainly entertain kids.
Yeah, right.
I'll
a lot easier actually.
I don't know, man. I don't know. They get so. Like, I don't know. Today was my first day ever doing camp, and I was thinking paper airplanes were like, I love paper airplanes as a kid. Out of 15 kids, 2 of them raised their hands having made a paper airplane before. Like, can you believe it? Computer. I mean, I'm like flabbergasted with screens. I mean, they could, but they can't make a paper airplane. It's like, man, I was shocked. So my whole like icebreaker activity was like, everyone's gonna make their favorite plane. Never mind, you couldn't make a plane. Just you're gonna make your favorite plane, and we're gonna go throw them and introduce ourselves to each other. And 13 didn't know how to make a plane at all, so that did not work. Anyway, okay, I'll leave and transfer to somebody else.
I'm out of here myself. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Mark.
Okay, awesome. I missed the last 5 minutes just as I was wanting to say a couple things about that. But if you're going, I'm not going to slow you down.
No. If you have something to say, Mark, you're worth 5 minutes of my time, buddy. I'll hang out.
Yeah, probably like 30 seconds. I had just said, number one, I'm testing a new microphone. Does it sound okay?
Yeah.
All right, great.
Sounds good here on earphones.
Awesome. And then two is I said that I thought it was a good idea to contact Brandon Fancher and let him know that share that EOS proposals list with him, and put feeler out there to see if he has any inspiring ideas that would come together. So I think that answer would be, he'd say, okay, cool, I'll use that as a starting line for integration into the Eden on EOS, Eden EOS, because I think everybody agreed about 5 minutes ago that Eden EOS is the place to put that project proposal list as a starter. Was there anything else I missed?
Well, the other thing was, yeah, as a starter, like, yes, but I think the bigger topic, or the bigger proposal essentially, was what John mentioned, and that was basically some sort of platform or portal or access point that Eden members can go to and see different proposals and projects that other Eden members are proposing. But on top of that,
coming on that one.
Okay, yeah.
So that sounds like we decided here 5 minutes ago that was Eden EOS.
Yeah, it's just a place. Yeah, it could be that place. Yeah, it just needs to be the page needs to be built, so then where the projects go could be on Pomelo. That's what Matthew was saying. That was a good point. Like, they're going to be a list of projects, so they could be Eden projects there, and so you could link to those, which would be interesting. But then the other point was, under our Eden profiles, when you log in, you'd be able to sort of pre-select projects, like someone like myself and like yourself, Mark, or whatever, and we're not building anything, but we want to vouch for someone else who is. We could pre-select who we'd vouch for, and we could even select more than one project and give a percentage of our potential winnings to each and have it sort of listed there. And then you could go and click to the projects that Mark Shear wants to vouch for, and I could click on your profile and I'd click on whatever project that maybe Aaron submitted or that someone else submitted, right? And so that it would be a way just to see who is vouching for what. I think that's
what. Well, it sounds like say just a 1.0 proposal list would definitely be on Pomelo, and I'll propose Brandon Fancher. Hey, do you want this organic version 0.1 proposal list that I've got to begin integrating a proposal list aspect to your Eden EOS? And now we're going to have on Eden EOS their proposal list, but also they'll probably reference a different one, which is a Pomelo, at least a link to say other stuff, go to Pomelo. But I'll work it with Brandon Fancher, and then maybe on the Eden EOS side with Brandon Fancher, John Heater could get his idea slightly encoded into that version 0.1 organic Eden direct proposal list, nucleus that I kind of threw together. So I'll connect with Brandon. I got your message. I understand what you said. So that's really what I wanted to kind of get a quick backfill on what I missed right at that critical moment. I wanted to grab what you guys were talking about.
Yeah, man. And if you go back in the chat, John actually wrote it out. He wrote it out fairly clear.
Yeah. In fact, Chris, do you mind copy and paste and send that to me, because I had to exit the meeting and come back.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I lost the chat.
I could probably.
It starts the chat over, believe it or not.
Here, I'll re-chat it. There we go.
Yeah. All right. Perfect.
What else was there?
All right. Cool.
Yeah. That's basically.
I think that was it. If there was anything else, definitely let me know. But that was the John Heater one. I'll add that. What I said it to Brandon Fancher.
Yeah. That's very interesting, because when you read that John writes now, and you go on Eden EOS, no, in Notions, this is written at which phase will come these features. This is not for this version that we are now from Eden OS. That's for the next the next iteration, I think. Some of this feature. So maybe some of this feature that would be a little bit maybe stress for the 17, but at least if we have the list of the project, that we can know what are the projects of each candidate, at least that.
I think the low hanging fruit for me here, the quick
Or
win.
if you can do all that,
Well,
I am happy.
it's I think we just need to get some projects presented and have a no fund. Like, I'm gonna suggest this in the chats and see what people think about a no fund proper Eden election.
I, myself, for example,
Did you hear that
if
part,
I have
Mark?
not the funds, I continue.
You might have missed that. I can't recall when you would you hear the part where we're thinking of maybe just having a proper Eden election with only Eden members, but no funding, to basically aggregate these, but with the members and the proposals like our big funding. Like, assuming we had the 10 million EOS, what would those proposals look like? Have an Eden election with the current membership, with the proposals and the funding that they need to build some of these things that are being talked about. And then, even though there's no funds, see what the process, see who comes to the top, do the proper election. And then once we'll have 6 or whatever, how many we do for the rounds, and then we can give that to the BPs and say, here's what we'd like to build. Block 1, and then there was the point 2 was maybe Block 1 would help apply pressure to BPs saying, yeah, we want these things built too, so we're not going to vote for you.
Yeah, Chris, that's just fantastic what you say, because Dan is exactly expecting that. He's expecting that we do a test trial election and that we see who is reaching the last round.
He said that? He said we should have a test trial election?
I would support it, and I'd support it because I pretty much support anything. But I would say that we have a demo election coming, and I would have to clarify it. I'd say, okay, well, we'll have a off the books real Eden election with or without sanction of Dan Larimer, with or without hosting of Dominic. But it sounds like you couldn't really pull it off without either of those chiming in. But you probably would.
We want them involved. No.
Right.
Yeah, it's a no. I think the idea is here. Hopefully people agree. I think it's a good idea. Like, it's this chicken and egg, right? We want to have these projects get funded. Well, what projects? That's what Kevin's asking. Good point. I have no idea what these projects are. So, are we going to find out what the projects are after we get the funding?
So
Probably
so
not, right?
If you had the first real preliminary election, it's almost parallel with a demo open election, but we have a parallel real preliminary election that is just limited to members. Then just after that, we have a vote kind of to find out which project's the best, or would the election itself determine that?
No, yeah, use the process. Use the Eden process to identify the top 6 people that each represent a project or 6, and say this is the pitch, and basically compile the top board, never mind the Satoshi thing, but just the board, and have all these projects and say, here you go BPs, here you go Block 1, here you go community. This is what the Eden process just came up with from Eden members who are passionate. This is what we can deliver. This is what we'd like to do. We don't have funding yet, but look, this is something substantial and concrete, and we ran through the process. The answers that we resolved to were legitimate, even though there was no money. To me, that's it.
Yeah.
It's just the downside is time. No one's getting paid for their time, so that's another. Let's commit some more time that we don't get paid for.
That's already the case.
It's already the case, so a little more, but it's tough to demand.
For us.
So it's not an event to create roles like electors. It's an event to create projects, or is it going to do both?
I don't know, man. I'm indifferent. It could do both. It could be the first official election. Why not? Except there's no prize. Maybe it's the first official election with no prize.
Well, also the opposite. It could just be let's reach consensus on which projects we want to build.
Yes,
without any elector.
That's right.
Involved.
Could be that too. I'm open to both, but
really
I think
it would be a really pure way to use our fractal democracy to come to consensus without getting confused about the word election.
It's a refinement of project selection, but it's also a project exposure. I think
you could actually create a name for it, Chris, that would help. I don't mind doing 2 elections at once and clearing the mud for my own eyes, but other people get confused, obviously, because they don't stay around and check it out much, so they'll think, what's going on? But if you named it, consensus project determinator, event.
Yeah.
Choose the best idea in your group. Choose the best ideas in your group.
I think that would be really cool to see if you can do a quick
instead of
a consensus cycle using the Eden members before we've even had an election.
Well, it is election. That's the thing. I mean, it's all moot. I mean,
That's
the
already
Eden
a
process
election.
can resolve. I mean, it's.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it counts. It's just not how we envisioned it necessarily. It's still using the Eden election process, the actual system that's from Dan's book, and we're using it to resolve
go
for
round after
trusted
round.
people who have projects that we want to give money to, community money to. I mean, it hasn't
In fact,
changed.
you know, it's almost just like a poll.
Yes, it is.
It's like a weight. It's like a weighted poll.
A poll,
Sure.
yeah.
You know, Eden project polling. It's a fractal hierarchical project polling. Because the thing is what are we doing? And if you get the problem defined, then 50% of your solution's solved.
Yeah, I
So
think
if
right.
it's really a poll, we could define it and say it's a poll that can name it determinator or poll, and then to find out what projects we need to submit as input to BPs to say this is what we're interested in building as a community, and then you get away from the election altogether and clear the air.
Well,
Anyway,
you raise a good point,
my 2
right?
cents.
What's the purpose? What is the point? Well, two points. One is to elect people to change the rules, right? To write the rules. That's one purpose of the elected people. They get to make the rules. The second purpose is to allocate funds. I don't know if there's many other. That's it. All I see it. Those are the two rules. The two purposes. So one of them we've already solved for because Dan is already going to be he's the Satoshi in terms of bylaws for the first year. So right now, any election we do kind of has nothing to do with rules, other than the ratification from the board, and even that's loose. I mean, why wouldn't it be ratification from everybody possibly? I mean, who knows how that's
It
going
has
to work?
nothing to do with the policy. It has nothing to do with funding.
So we just focus on the funding bit. Like, don't worry about the rules. Dan's got that. That's his baby. I'm totally cool with that. It's his experiment. I'm happy, and he's not trying to change the rules so he can game it later. It's the exact opposite. So who's going to argue with that? So let's just focus on the funding piece.
When you use the word funding, I would say it's also tied to an electoral process. If you're just going to poll to find out what the community wants to fund, that's different.
Then it's a democracy. We're selecting for people we trust to actually spend the funds and the projects themselves, right?
So if we went through that whole process, they still wouldn't be funded, but we would know what we wanted.
Yeah, the process would at least resolve for
Okay,
what the projects that Eden
so
would
it's
resolve for.
it's not hard tied to policy. Dan got that.
Yeah.
It's not hard tied to funding. That's an election.
No, but
is
it's
for.
Yeah, well, but this is the whole point. We would do that election, so we it's like cart and horse. Do we get funding first and then we have an election, or maybe we do the election first and then try to get funding? And I've always been thinking about it. Get the funding first so we can have the big election. But I think I've had that twisted in my mind. But now we can do the election with no funding.
When you say funding, you speak the funding at the base layer for Eden.
I don't know. Yeah, a lot of funding. Like not just
but,
Dan's
just to be
Dan's
clear,
pocketbook.
Just to be clear, because Mark is speaking
What would
other
you get
thing.
out of
Mark
would
is
you get-
speaking other thing when he
what would
says
you get out of the poll?
You would run an Eden election, and you would solve for people, aka their projects, that want to get funded. So we run just like we're doing with actual Eden members, like the first election would actually be. We'd all have our big projects and marketing and whatever Aaron wants to do, and there's lots of people who have a lot of stuff that needs to get built. Are we gonna have our election to see what those things are after we've been confirmed funding? Which makes sense. We're trying to we're doing these mock elections. We're trying to get trust. We're trying to come on BPs. You can fund us with inflation. But maybe maybe they never say yes, and we just sit here in this holding pattern waiting for funding. Or what I'm now realizing we could try is don't worry about the funding. Hold the election. With if we assumed we had the funding, if we had 10 million EOS, let's just hold that election, and it's pretend land, but at least let's do it. So, and if everyone puts forth a solid effort, and whatever rises to the top, then we take that and say, Project A, B, C, D. Here's the funds. Here's all the reasons that they actually got selected. They'd have to have a budget, all that shit that they need. We then hand that to the BPs cleanly and nicely, and Dan can hand it to them and say, this is what the Eden process just solved for from actual Eden members. This is the funding we need to execute, and put the ball in their court. And maybe it's a one-time only. Maybe they don't need to commit inflation for eternity. Maybe it's just turn on inflation for a moment to fund it, to turn it back off. Okay, I'll take that as a win. And then we can give that to Block 1 because Kevin's asking, well, show me some projects. Okay, fair enough. We don't have any projects to show you other than a spreadsheet and some stuff on a forum. So let's run the election without the funding, pretending we had it, and then see if that can then get us the funding. Does that make sense?
Okay.
I have a question for the 17. Okay, I have registered with the Google form. I have already told you that, Chris. I know it's very obvious for you, but I ask one again. Okay, I have applied to this Google form. I have received a feedback email with my applying. If I explain well, okay. And now the 17 is coming. Concretely, I will receive, where is the Zoom link? The Zoom link will come in my inbox. The Zoom link will be published on,
Yeah. It's a great question to which I know no answer.
I have this question today also.
I'd ask Dominic. He's the guy who's running the election, so Dominic will have the answer. He's aggregating all the emails, so I assume it's
Chris,
for him.
do you have a date in mind where you think you could pull this off? Would it be more like August 1st or...
It's a great question, Mark. So does that make sense to you now? Because you had some good questions about the difference of like the purpose. Does that seem like a logical approach?
Yeah, I just don't like the idea of either of the two that the Eden elections take as an output being mixed with any purpose of this auxiliary I would say this is a cycle. We're going through some kind of a cycle as a community, and it's not an electoral cycle, it's not a funding cycle, it's not a policy cycle, it's simply a consensus cycle. I would say it's going to come out with output that's going to be informational. It'll be almost like a poll. But it'll be using the tools that we've set up, or Dan has set up for Eden, and it would come out with information, not to be confused or muddied with government and all that stuff. No, it's informational, and the electors can have some hard bond to it in August or September when they get elected, and there's something formal. Dan can have a hard bond to it because he owns the whole organization right now, but to try to hard bond anything, I would say no. It's informational. It's poll. It'll use all the great tools. It's not electoral. It's not policy. It's not funding.
It's a pitch. It's a pitch for funding.
Thank you. I would unbind it for anything. You can use the word pitch.
Okay.
That's okay. But potential candidate pitches in the future, informationally speaking, here are our top 6. There you go. That's the data. Now anybody can do it officially on an official side. If Dan wants to start talking to BPs, he can give them that data set.
That makes a ton of sense. So it'd be a pitch, but if the pitch was effectively pitched and yielded funding, then it would have turned into a funding round. It would be a pitch that could be funded. Does that make sense?
And Dan could own it, but this poll and this whole event, nobody's taking ownership. It's just produced data.
No, but it's like a trial election. It could be official. I mean, that's where we'd have to ask. I haven't asked Dan or Dominic any of this stuff. I don't know what these guys think, but it's just a spitballing ideas, right? And it stemmed from
a poll to get a poll. But I would take the word election. I would ban it. I would delete it.
Yeah, well, I'd pitch because it's more than a poll because you're not going to fund the outcome of a poll later on necessarily, would you?
Yeah,
I would save the pitch for later, to be honest, too. And I would use the poll data from the community when we went through that cycle, using all those great tools for determining excellent data, excellent information on what the community wants.
Yeah.
And then I would say I would use all that data, and then I would create a pitch. Whoever's got it, you may be able to do it in your quasi position right now. Dan may be able to do it in his actual position. He is the official.
Yeah.
And then also after the 17th, we may have an actual election where some folks can take all that information and make it official. But right now, I would say as pre-Eden electoral body and all this demo, we would be using the tools just to create information, but to try to get it to traction.
But
Try
but
to make
you, Mark, you are reflecting like a data analyst. Yeah, you think you have data.
Try to separate as much as possible. And then you can when it's time for the pitch, Chris, it's different. Then you can take this piece of information. You say this is bona fide.
Mm-hmm.
This is perfect. perfect data.
But
I'm making it official now that I'm pitching it. But the whole thing has just got to be, hey, just a bunch of us dudes got together, use these great tools. We get excellent set of data from our community. By the way, it's ready to be used for a pitch.
yeah, I think I agree with you. I think
I think so too.
I don't know.
I just really worry about getting confusion and
Yeah.
getting people tripping over their heels when we're just trying to bootstrap something.
Yeah. But
Right.
just sorry. Chris, you were already in the last election, so you know well. Mark, you are oriented like a data analyst. You want to make a data pool and create the pitch afterward. But now imagine, I have never doing that, but I am just thinking. Okay, let's say we are the 17 now. I am now in the Zoom we are 4 now in this group. Okay, when it's come to me to speak, you will ask me, Patrick, what you want to do if you are elected? What you want to do if you want to go to the next round? So I will explain a little bit my project. I will not make I will do a kind of pitch to explain what forget the word pitch, okay? Forget the word pitch. I will explain what I want to do, what is my project, and how I see the collaboration. And if you think that my idea is correct, you will maybe decide to promote me to the next round. It's correct? It's that? Or I am totally beside my shoes, or I am understand nothing? It's that, Chris, or it's not that?
Well, you know what? I think I might be reading in.
I asked to Chris. Is it that, or it is not that?
I think so. Yeah, you're pitching for. I mean, the point of Eden is to
No, you
select
say
people.
you think so, but it is that. It is that, or it is not that. The 17. We will do that, or what we will do exactly?
It's a rhetorical question. You know the answer, Patrick. We are going to do that. It's a trial election, no different than the trial election that we've already had. That's what we're doing.
So it
Same
is
thing.
not different.
No difference.
That will exactly like the last one. So
Just like it. Just bigger. We want more people. Different pricing,
Alors,
different allocation of the
Okay.
prize pool, not just the Satoshi. So, but it's the same thing. There's no. It doesn't even have to be Eden members, right?
Okay.
Same as before.
But with to take in account what said Mark, you can take at each round this ID, making a data pool, and when the election is finished, you have all this data, and you can do the synergy, and you can create this pitch that
I
to
agree.
present to the-
I agree. Just use the demo election to get your data. That's what Patrick's saying.
Yeah,
Well,
and that's
again,
not what I'm
I will
saying.
do what I have to do, and I will do.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm suggesting, because I don't think that the big projects that EOS really needs, the stuff that Aaron is talking about, and some of the other bigger players and their projects, they're not going to be pitched in this trial election coming up because there's no point. 2,000 EOS isn't
Yeah,
going to
there
make
are
it
some
in.
people that will not pitch anything.
And there's a ton of work. There's a ton of work to
Yeah.
put together the proposal. So
They will
I don't
not
think
speak
that has
anything.
anything to do with the 17th election. The one I'm
Yeah.
talking about doing is only Eden members, so that alone is different.
Sorry,
it's-
only Eden members.
And
I
we're
forget
approaching
to
it.
say
We're
only
approaching
Eden
it like
members.
it was an official election to receive 10 million EOS. That's the goal. So then, all the projects of the current Eden members that we have, there should be at least 6 or 7 fantastic projects that we need. Will hopefully prove
Sorry.
rise to the top, and that becomes a little collection of, hey BPs, we need 10 million euros or 5 million euros. This is what we need it for. Block 1, here you go, Kevin. You've asked for projects. Here you go. Here's the people who are tied. Here's all the videos of how it came out. The Eden process
But
worked.
that is
Look
the
what it solved
17th.
for.
Or not.
That's not the 17th, no, because that's
No,
open to
no.
anybody.
17.
No,
separate
Chris,
one.
you clarified that beautifully. I mean, we knew that. They're apples and oranges.
They're not the same, yeah.
I am
They're
totally
apples.
open. I am totally open.
Yeah, you could.
I have
you could
time.
take-
I have time. It's okay.
Yeah, you can take a risk and just say whatever comes out of the 17th. Let's use that for.
I have no expectation, so I will do that very open.
yeah,
Hello?
you could-
Oh, go ahead. I'll wait.
Go, no, Troy Brian. I've never heard you speak before. You go ahead.
Oh, I would just get to ask one thing about. So we have 128 or maybe a little more members right now. With the, I'm assuming the number of good ideas is going to hopefully increase as the membership grows. So I'm wondering what you guys thought about. Are you guys talking about deciding what we're going to do with a million EOS, like what projects right away in the next few months, or are you guys, acknowledging that we might change our mind based on, if we get 1,000 or 10,000 members and a lot of new ideas and stuff like that? What's your thoughts on that? That's all.
Yeah, so I mean, so right now there is no funding. Like so it's like it's the whole cart horse thing, right? So if there was a million EOS up for grabs, I have a feeling of the 128 members we have now, there would be plenty of good places to put those EOS to deliver fantastic projects for the ecosystem. So will there be more projects when we have 1,000 members? Yes, probably. And 10,000? Yes, of course. There'll be more projects that will have, because there's more minds, right? So more minds will create more projects. But so yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but so it will change with more members for sure. But today, if we had a million EOS and we ran a proper Eden election with just 128 members, I think we'd find that there are plenty of good projects that will consume every single one of those EOS to deliver without needing an extra 882 or 72 members.
Okay, thanks.
Is that what your question was? Does that make sense?
Yeah, basically that was the question. Yes.
Anything else? I know you're pretty new, Troy. I did see you join recently. Do you have any other, like, since you're new, like, what are your thoughts? What I'm getting drawn into. I like these things, even though I got shit to do.
Yeah, you gotta do your egg tots thing.
It's okay. It's only 8:30 my time. I got time.
Yeah, I've been observing. I'm kind of new to join, but I've been too busy to join. I've been seeding and stuff until now, and so I've been observing it. Just I'm kind of interested in. I'll just say this, and then I'll let you go, guys. But I'm interested in Eden. Like I do value it for solving EOS consensus problem. But I really I'm one that thinks it can be used for a lot. Well, I imagine I'm not the only one. A lot of people agree that it can be used for a lot more. And obviously that's what Dan's book was about. So yeah, I'm really interested in trying to grow that aspect of it. Like trying to, I'm not sure what I'm going to try to do, but anyway, very interested, and that's all.
Yeah, man, that's a great answer, and I don't think you're alone, right? Like I think a lot of us see the Eden on EOS is a stepping stone for Eden on name your country, right? Like
yes, perfect. Yeah.
It's just it's again, that's where I got stuck in when I won the Satoshi thing, and then I was on with Brandon Lovejoy on his Blocks Populi podcast, and he was my first one I was ever on, and I sort of just went into this politics, like, yeah, we can change the world, because that's how you kind of feel. It's like it gave me hope that there might be another way to select leaders, right? Because obviously we're so fucked currently. But then I realized like that narrative just won't, like no one's going to believe it. You're selling too much. Like it's just, come on. As soon as you say we're going to change the world, people's ears turn off. So you have to, so now I'm realizing we just need to focus hard on EOS. And if we can show that this Eden process has pulled EOS out of the ash heap of covered in shit from all the garbage we've dealt with, right? And all of a sudden we can say, oh, look what Eden did. That is the best opportunity we'd have to get the Eden idea into other people's heads, because just through filling their bags, they're like, oh, well, if the Eden worked for EOS, and look how much better that project is now, maybe we need Eden on Cardano or Eden, like, because any blockchain that has people who are selecting leaders could use this process to select their leaders. They could call it whatever they want, right? But it's still a fractal governance using randomization from the bottom. Like they could easily do it. So yeah, that's where I see it. We make it work on EOS, and then it'll slowly just spill into the rest of the world, which is what you're saying, right? The bigger goal that I think a lot of us see. Yep. Well, on that note, there's my little rant to kick it off. I'm gonna finish my dinner and figure out what raw materials I need to, and a slingshot. I haven't made my slingshot yet.
Good luck tomorrow.
Thanks, man. Yeah, thanks, Todd. I appreciate it. Hopefully it goes good. The recording will stop too, because it's on my I'm doing it on my device here. So You guys are certainly welcome to hang around and chat, but the recording will end. So we're only 2.5 hours in. We can go forever.
Nice one.
Okay.
It's a good conversation, guys.
Yeah.
Look forward to next week, and I got to get out of here, so
Okay. Later,
I'll
man.
chat with you guys later.
Bye, guys. Bye,
Later.
Patrick. Mark.
Bye-bye,
Thanks for chiming in, Troy, and Aaron as well, and Waxa.
Yeah, great talking to you guys. Yeah, talk to you later, guys.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
See you later.